Hey everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Club Podcast. Glad you could join me. Today we're going to be talking about Harvey Weinstein and why I believe that this is actually going to be a much, much bigger story than the media is reporting right now, and why I think it's going to be the beginning of something, not the end of something. A lot of people right now are discussing Harvey Weinstein in terms of his own career, that this is the end of his career. And while I agree with that this is the end of Harvey Weinstein's career, that there is no coming back from this, I think it's much more than that. I think that this is the beginning of the end of the age of the untouchable Hollywood producer, of the age of the untouchable executive, of the age of the untouchable boss. I think a lot of that's going to come to an end very quickly because of this. But let's start at the top if you're not familiar. A couple of days ago, a story broke about a producer in Hollywood called Harvey Weinstein. It has broken open the dam on a series of allegations that have been stemming back at least 20 years about this guy. These allegations include sexual assault, they include rape. These allegations revolve around him being one of the most powerful men in Hollywood, and the string of women that he has sort of abused and assaulted in that time frame. The story broke in the New Yorker, and it wasn't supposed to have broken in the New Yorker. Actually, it was originally supposed to have broken on NBC. Now, we'll circle back to that in a bit, but the history of this article is actually rather important. This is a story that's been worked on now for about a year, and for the longest time, nobody wanted to touch it. Nobody wanted to get anywhere near the story. And the reason behind that is going to be relevant as we go through this podcast. But I want to preface all this up front right now, that Harvey Weinstein, whether you know his name or not, everyone in the entertainment world knew who this guy was. And everyone in the entertainment world, believe it or not, was probably 1 or 2 degrees away connected to him somehow. So the article came out on the New Yorker just over the weekend, and let me read from it right now. For more than 20 years, Weinstein, who is now 65, has also been trailed by rumors of sexual harassment and assault. His behavior has been an open secret to many in Hollywood and beyond, but previous attempts by many publications, including the New Yorker, to investigate and publish the story over the years fell short of the demands of journalistic evidence. So what the author of the article is saying is he's trying to preface this, and I think it's very important to do so, that this is a story that a lot of people have been working on up until now, but for whatever reason, it never reached certain journalistic evidence, which I find stunning to say the least, because testimony, women's testimony, is journalistic evidence. Enough women getting together and saying these events happened to us should count as journalistic evidence. But for whatever reason, major publications stayed away from it. Again, that idea that Harvey Weinstein is very powerful is critical to understand why this story has bubbled for so long and why the story breaking now is going to be so critical. To continue the article, too few people were willing to speak, much less allow a reporter to use their names, and Weinstein and his associates used non-disclosure agreements, payoffs, and legal threats to suppress their accounts. Asia Argento, an Italian film actress and director, said that she did not speak until now because she felt that Weinstein would crush her. I know he has crushed a lot of people before, Argento said. That's why this story, in my case, it's 20 years old, some of them are older, has never come out. Pause from reading the article so I can put this in proper context. Asia Argento is not just some young, naive waif that stepped off a bus in Hollywood and wanted to be a star. Asia Argento is the daughter of Dario Argento. Dario Argento is one of the most famous and influential directors ever in Hollywood. His movies are famous. He's an Italian director that invented essentially an entire genre of horror called Italian horror. So she's not unfamiliar with the film industry. She is not unconnected to the film industry. It's not like her name didn't carry any clout behind her. But Harvey Weinstein still took advantage of her, and she, even being the daughter of a well-known director, was still terrified to go after Harvey Weinstein. The article continues, in the course of a 10-month investigation, I was told by 13 women that between the 1990s and 2015, Weinstein sexually harassed or assaulted them. Their allegations corroborate and overlap with the Times revelations and also include far more serious claims. The New York Times recently published an article about Harvey Weinstein to coincide with the New Yorker article that I'm reading right now. To continue the article, 3 of the women, among them Argento and a former aspiring actress named Lucia Evans, told me that Weinstein had raped them, forcibly performing or receiving oral sex or forcing vaginal sex. 4 women said that they had experienced unwanted touching that could be classified as an assault. In an audio recording captured during a New York Police Department sting operation in 2015, Weinstein admits to groping a Filipina-Italian model named Umbra Gutierrez, describing it as behavior he is, quote, used to. 4 of the women I have interviewed cited encounters in which Weinstein exposed himself or masturbated in front of them. So again, multiple women coming forward. In one instance, one of the women went straight to the cops. The cop said, get this guy on tape. She got a recording of him that you can find online and listen to, of him essentially admitting that he assaulted her, essentially admitting that he did this to her, and yet no one would touch him. That recording is actually very critical when we talk about NBC in a little bit and what happened when this story and this journalist brought this story to NBC originally. And it wasn't just actresses that were being affected by this. The New York Times wrote an article that detailed another example of harassment. To quote from this story that is referring to the New York Times, the Times story disclosed a complaint to the Weinstein Company's Office of Human Resources, filed on behalf of a temporary front desk assistant named Emily Nestor in December 2014. Nestor was 25 when she started a job and, after finishing law school and starting business school, was considering a career in the movie industry. On her first day in the position, Nestor said 2 employees told her that she was Weinstein's, quote, type. When Weinstein arrived at the office, he made comments about her appearance, referring to her as the pretty girl. He asked how old she was and then sent all of his assistants out of the room and made her write down her telephone number. Weinstein told her to meet him for drinks that night. Nestor invented an excuse. When he insisted, she suggested an early morning coffee the next day, assuming he wouldn't accept. He did, and he told her to meet him at the Peninsula Hotel in Beverly Hills where he was staying. Nestor said that she had talked with friends in the entertainment industry and employees in the company who had warned her about Weinstein's reputation. I dressed very frumpy, she said. So he wasn't just going after people that wanted to be stars. I think there's this impression that many people have, again, that this was a casting couch scenario. While a lot of it was that, a lot of it wasn't that. A lot of it was just people who wanted to work in the entertainment industry. So the question that you're probably going to ask yourself is, okay, so why didn't these women come forward more forcefully? Why isn't that they weren't speaking up loudly? Even though many of them actually did, why wasn't anything happening to this guy? To continue the article, and I think one of the most important paragraphs of the article, virtually all of the people I spoke with told me that they were frightened of retaliation. If Harvey were to discover my identity, I'm worried that he would ruin my life, one former employee told me. Many said that they had seen Weinstein's associates confront and intimidate those who crossed him, and fearing that they would be similarly targeted. 4 actresses, including Mira Sorvino and Rosanna Arquette, told me that they suspected that after they rejected Weinstein's advances or complained about them to company representatives, Weinstein had them removed from projects or dissuaded people from hiring them. To continue the article, multiple sources said that Weinstein frequently bragged about planting items in media outlets about those who spoke against him. These sources feared similar retribution. Several pointed to Gutierrez's case. After she went to the police, negative items discussing her sexual history and impugning her credibility began rapidly appearing in the New York gossip pages. So many women did go public, and Harvey Weinstein crushed them. So if you're wondering now, well, I don't get it. Why is this guy so powerful? Why is this guy so influential? Harvey Weinstein founded a company with his brother called Miramax. And the name is almost certainly familiar to you because you've probably seen it at the beginning of many of the movies that you've watched over the last 20, 30 years. Miramax was simultaneously a distribution and production company for different projects. To give you an idea of how powerful and influential Harvey Weinstein was, let me give you a list of movies that Miramax has done. And before I start reading them off, this is a curated list. It's much, much longer, but this is a list. I picked the ones that were probably more familiar to people because he specialized in a lot of art house movies as well. These are just a list of the names that I think most people have heard of or maybe even seen in terms of these movies. And I guarantee you at least one or two of these names are going to be on your top 10 list of favorite movies of all time. 40 Days and 40 Nights, 54, A Midsummer's Night's Dream, Mighty Aphrodite, Adventureland, Amelie, Apocalypse Now Redux, Bridget Jones' The Edge of Reason, Bridget Jones's Baby, Bridget Jones's Diary, Bullets Over Broadway, Captain Corelli's Mandolin, Captives, Chasing Amy, Chicago, Cinderella Man, Cinema Paradiso, City of God, City of Men, Clerks, Confessions of a Dangerous Mind, Copland, Dancing Through the Dark, Deception, Delicatessen, Dirty Pretty Things, Don't Be a Menace to South Central While Drinking Your Juice in the Hood, Don't Be Afraid of the Dark, Doubt, Ella Enchanted, Emma, Everyone Says I Love You, Exotica, Farewell My Concubine, Finding Neverland, 4 Days in September, 4 Rooms, Full Frontal, Gangs of New York, Garden State, Romeo and Juliet, Gone Baby Gone, Good Will Hunting, Halloween, Hamlet, Hardcore Logo, Hardware, Heavenly Creatures, Hero, Hollywoodland, Hostage, Iron Monkey, I've Heard the Mermaid Singing, Jackie Brown, Jane Eyre, Jane Silent Bob Strike Back, Jersey Girl, Kate and Leopold, Kids, Kill Bill Volume 1, Kill Bill Volume 2, Kinky Boots, Life is Beautiful, Like Water for Chocolate, Little Buddha, Madonna, Truth or Dare, Mansfield Park, Master and Commander, Mediterraneo, Microcosmos, Mr. Holmes, Muriel's Wedding, My Left Foot, No Country for Old Men, Only the Strong Survive, Paris is Burning, Pinocchio, Playing for Keeps, Pokemon Heroes, Princess Mononoke, Pulp Fiction, Ready to Wear, Reservoir Dogs, Rounders, Sex, Lies, and Videotape, Shakespeare in Love, Shaolin Soccer, She's All That, Sin City, Sirens, Sling Blade, Strictly Ballroom, Swingers, Tadpole, The Aviator, The Boy in the Striped Pajamas, The Cider House Rules, The Cook, the Thief, His Wife, and Her Lover, The Crossing Guard, The Crow, The Crying Game, The Diving Bell and the Butterfly, The English Patient, The Four Feathers, The Importance of Being Earnest, The Matador, The Musketeer, The Never-Ending Story, The Others, The Pallbearer, The Piano, The Queen, The Quest, The Shipping News, The Station Agent, The Talented Mr. Ripley, The Tempest, The Thief and the Cobbler, The Wedding Ringer, The Thin Blue Line, There Will Be Blood, Things to Do in Denver When You're Dead, Tie Me Up, Tie Me Down, Trainspotting, Undisputed, Welcome to Sarajevo, Working Girls. These are some of the most popular movies ever made. Some of these were actually the most profitable movies ever made. These movies won awards. A couple of these movies won Oscars. They won a ton of sort of European Oscars, the BAFTA Awards, for example. These movies were directed by some of the most famous directors in the world: Martin Scorsese, Robert Rodriguez, Quentin Tarantino, Kevin Smith. You would know these names. You know these people. These aren't hacks. These aren't nobodies. These movies starred some of the most famous people in the world. These movies made people's careers. So when you ask yourself, why didn't anyone stand up to him? They didn't stand up to the guy because he knew everybody in Hollywood. With one phone call, he can have you blacklisted. So it's really important for us to understand, why is it that so many women would have not wanted to come forward? Why is it that so many women didn't mace him in the face when they had the chance? And why is it, now that you know the list of movies he's made and the people he's worked with, why is that so many media publications didn't touch the guy? Because he knows everybody. He just doesn't know directors and writers and actors. He knows the investors. One of the things that he did was help raise money for movies. He knows everybody with money in Hollywood. You would never want to go after a guy like this unless you absolutely wanted to and absolutely thought the risk was worthwhile. And unfortunately, given the fact that media is obsessed with cash like every other industry there is, nobody tried to do anything. So when Ronan Farrow, the man who wrote the article that I was quoting earlier, the man who broke the story on this, approached NBC about a year ago with the actual audio tape that the New York Police Department had of Harvey Weinstein confessing to abusing and assaulting that woman, NBC said they don't want to touch it. From CNN.com, on an article discussing what happened when Ronan Farrow approached NBC about Harvey Weinstein about a year ago. Quote, Ronan was basically told to stop working on this, according to a source who called the network's decision indefensible. The official explanation from the news division's president, Noah Oppenheim, said that we didn't feel that we had all the elements that we needed to air it. So Farrow, quote, took it to the New Yorker and did a ton more extraordinary work. But some staffers aren't buying that, and they're wondering why Farrow's taped interviews with accusers aren't being broadcast now. To continue the article, on tape, Weinstein seemingly admits to groping the woman one day earlier. The Manhattan District Attorney's Office determined that it was not sufficient evidence to prosecute. I don't know how you can defend sitting on an audio tape for months, said the source who remains troubled by the NBC News decision. Again, Harvey Weinstein was so powerful, was so influential, that even NBC News says we don't want to deal with it, even though they had a recording of him confessing on tape to assaulting somebody. That tape alone is more than enough. Corroboratory evidence is more than enough to get an article published, to get a piece done in the news. But that's who Harvey Weinstein is. Harvey Weinstein was, until a week ago, one of the most untouchable men in Hollywood. And that's what's all about to change right now. I think people from the outside looking in, they're seeing things moving very quickly. There seems to be this belief that this is all suddenly happening and that out of nowhere these allegations came up and now suddenly this guy's job is lost. He was fired from his own company, the Weinstein Company. The board booted him out. But this isn't, like I said, the end of something. This isn't the end of his career. This is the beginning of the end for a lot of men in Hollywood. And as I'm going to say, a lot of men in the financial world, the corporate world, and the technology world. When the story broke, I was having coffee with a buddy of mine. And I looked at him and I said, I guarantee you that by the time the week is up, another executive is going to get fired. I guarantee you by the time we wake up on next Monday, that this will have spread to other executives in Hollywood and, in my opinion, other people in the tech sector. No sooner had I said that than The Guardian issued an article entitled, quote, Amazon suspends studio chief amid Weinstein scandal. Roy Price is accused of sexually harassing producer and ignoring actor's allegations that Harvey Weinstein raped her. Roy Price happens to be the guy in charge of Amazon Studios, right now one of the most prominent and one of the most influential studios in Hollywood, and also a division of a tech company, no surprise. Roy Price is accused of sexually harassing Isa Hackett, the producer of one of its best-known shows, The Man in the High Castle. Now, who is Isa Hackett again? We have this idea that these are timid, helpless, naive women that these predators go after to show you how predatory these men are. Isa Hackett is the daughter of Philip K. Dick. Philip K. Dick is one of the most influential science fiction writers of the 20th century, and quite frankly, probably one of the most influential writers in history, period. Much of the work that he's done has been the basis of some of the most famous Hollywood movies ever made, and his work now is being mined by Amazon for new shows. For example, The Man in the High Castle is based on the work of Philip K. Dick. And this guy decided to sexually harass the daughter of the man whose work you're using to make your TV show. The Man in the High Castle is probably Amazon's highest rated TV show right now. She told the industry trade magazine, The Hollywood Reporter, that Price had said, "You will love my dick." She said after she made clear she had a wife and children, Price loudly suggested anal sex within earshot of several others at the gathering. This is the type of behavior that is notorious amongst executives, not just in Hollywood, but in the tech sector, in the financial sector, and broadly across most big businesses. I know I have been to these meetings. I have seen these guys behave like this. One of the reasons why I sort of left corporate world was I quite frankly could no longer stand the behavior of a lot of these sort of executives and vice presidents and presidents and founders and CEOs towards their staff, and particularly towards the women who work for them. This behavior goes beyond Hollywood. This behavior is near universal in positions of power across the world, particularly in the business world. So what does Harvey Weinstein, what does this case, what does this event mean to the greater picture, to the bigger picture? Is this story just going to be about the ladies who came forward and accused him of assault and rape? Is this just going to be about Gwyneth Paltrow and Mira Sorvino and Rose McGowan? Or is there going to be movement beyond this? Is this going to be the beginning of something? A lot of times when you feel the ground shifting beneath your feet, a lot of times when things happen, what seems to be suddenly, it's not sudden at all. It's actually a culmination of a lot of little tiny events that sort of lead up and add to tremendous pressure for a dam to break. The best example that I can use about this, recently anyway, is the issue of gay marriage as it unfolded in the United States. For years, gay marriage was something that people viewed as impossible in the United States. People said it will never happen. There's just too much resistance. There's just too much objection to it. And even President Obama, when he ran for president the first time, he said he believes in traditional marriage. And then Joe Biden gave an interview. I believe it was with 60 Minutes, but I can't remember. But he gave an interview where he said, yeah, you know what? Gay marriage should be a thing. And within a year of him saying that, suddenly gay marriage was everywhere. Suddenly gay marriage became legalized in all 50 states. Why? Because it wasn't something that just happened overnight. There was such tremendous buildup that happened before Joe Biden said that when he finally did say that out loud, people finally said, this is the moment. This is the time now to do it. What are we waiting for? Let's just push ahead and get it done. And it happened. The same thing's happening with Harvey Weinstein right now. These accusations have been building up quietly in the background for a long time. And when the story came out, the dam burst. Finally, all these women that have been keeping these things secret or have been saying these things quietly finally came out publicly and said, you know what, this is what's going on. This is what's happening. And more importantly, we're sick of it happening and we're not putting up with this any longer. To me, it's analogous to watching two people circle in a fight. There's that moment where both sides are sort of walking around each other, waiting for the other guy to throw a punch, afraid of throwing the first punch themselves because they believe that would leave them exposed to something. Well, that's what happens in these kinds of instances. Everyone's afraid to come forward and point the finger first. Everyone's afraid to be the first person to take the first hit on this. Because again, when you throw a punch, if you don't knock the other guy out, he's going to be able to hit you back. And that's the fear that was going on around Harvey Weinstein. Everyone was afraid to go on the record publicly and loudly for fear of retaliation. But now that other people have gone forward, now that other people have been the first ones to come out, everyone is now piling on. Everyone is now coming out and saying what actually happened because the fear is gone. And once the fear is removed and the fear has dissipated very quickly around Harvey Weinstein, the frustration is now allowed to be vented. The anger is now allowed to be vented. If you listen to these women's stories, if you follow them online on Twitter or on Instagram or on Facebook, you're not just hearing them recount their stories. You're not just hearing them recall what happened to them. You're reading the frustrations and the anger and the embarrassment that they have, that this was happening, the anger that this allowed to go on for years, the anger and the frustration that this continues to happen, because I guarantee you it wasn't just Harvey Weinstein that did this to them. I guarantee you that there are other producers that did this to them as well. And that's why this is the beginning of something and not the end of something. There are tipping points that are hit in life. There are tipping points that are hit in events that once you pass them, there is no turning back. There is no turning back now to the way that Hollywood used to be run. There is no turning back now on what used to be acceptable or what used to be quiet. In the upcoming weeks, I guarantee you, you will see a lot more producers be outed for their sexual harassment, for their sexual assault, and it will not just be contained in Hollywood. You're going to see it in the tech sector, which is notorious for sexual harassment, which is notorious for belittling women behind the scenes. You're going to start seeing it in the financial sector, which is notorious for sexual harassment and, quite frankly, sexual assault. You will see this coming out in major corporations left, right, and center in all different segments in all different sectors. Why? Because the tipping point has been reached. Women are now fed up and they've realized that people that were once untouchable are now touchable. They've realized that people that were once powerful, that were once immortal, are now mortal. They realize you can injure these people. You can bring these people down. Harvey Weinstein, in less than 7 days, went from being one of the most powerful producers in Hollywood history to nobody. He was thrown out of his own company. His name now is being stripped of work across the board. Amazon had a 4-picture deal with the Weinstein Company, and they canceled that 4-picture deal. You're starting to see the damage now begin to metastasize. This thing is not going to stay contained, nor quite frankly should it ever have been contained. I still have a bet with a friend of mine that within 30 days, you will see at least one executive commit suicide over this, because they will realize that it's over, that there's no turning back, that they're not going to be able to protect themselves. That if a guy like Harvey Weinstein can be brought down in 7 days, that anyone can be brought down in 7 days, that anyone can be brought down within 24 hours. To give you an idea of how rampant this is in the corporate world, when I first started working, one of my first jobs was with a large telecom company. And our sort of division's boss was a sort of the senior VP that one day literally just disappeared. He didn't show up to work. And we were told in a very curt email that, he's no longer with the company and you'll be assigned a new boss soon. And rumors started to fly around about why he may have left. The story came out after a while that he actually had sexually harassed several women in head office. And a couple of days later, he ended up getting a job at another telco. Like, it was publicly announced. There's a press release about it. And I said, how in the world is this guy getting a new job right now? And my mentor at the time sat me down. He said, you don't understand. There are people that make a career out of sexual harassment. He said, a lot of these guys do the following thing. They will actually go out, harass women. And when the women complain to HR, they'll actually confess. They'll say, yeah, I know, I harassed her. And they'll walk up to the company and say, well, you have 2 options. You can either sue me and we can drag this in court. And by definition, the name of your company is going to get dragged through the mud. And I'll deny everything and make you guys look like liars and make her look like a liar. Or you can get this, or you can give me a severance package right now and a letter of recommendation and I'll quit today. And that's what happens. These guys put corporations in a situation because corporations aren't brave enough to fight these battles. They actually profit off of assaulting women. So the woman that has been abused, the woman who has been assaulted, that has been degraded, gets nothing out of this. All she gets is this guy moves on to another job to do this all over again. Worse yet, he gets a full severance package to walk out the door for it. This is very common. You can make a career out of sexual harassment. When my mentor at that time first told me that, I didn't believe him. But as the years went on, I saw this actually happen in different companies. I saw this happen in companies that at the time I was consulting for. And I realized going, holy shit, there really is something called rape culture. That's not just a euphemism. That's not just something that the conservatives like to sort of call social justice warriors complaining. That's a real thing, and that's a manifestation of it. That at the end of the day, sexual predators can walk free because it's cheaper for the corporation to do that than to actually deal and prosecute and manage the problem. Because in many of these instances, the person that is doing the assault is a critical member of the team. He's the founder, he's a CEO. Getting rid of them is a huge pain in the ass for the company. So they would just rather make the problem go away. In Harvey Weinstein's situation, that's exactly what they did. For years, they were offering women hush money. They said, here, take some money and go away because we don't want to deal with the problem. Because it was cheaper for them to do so. Because getting rid of Harvey Weinstein would have wrecked their stock, would have wrecked their business deals, would have destroyed some development options that were on the table. But that thinking is ludicrous because what we're saying is that we would rather maintain our profit margins than protect the integrity and the rights and the liberties of women. And this is chronically happening. Corporations are always making this insane determination because up until now, there hasn't been pressure. I think that all changes today. I think that all changes this week. I think with Rose McGowan coming forward and really being forceful about this, because she's not just saying, I told people about this. She's not just saying, this is the event that happened to me. She's saying, I told everybody about this. She tweeted something that was sort of unbelievable to read, where she actually tweeted to Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon, and saying, I told you guys that Harvey Weinstein raped me and you still did business with him. I told you guys that I was sexually assaulted by these guys and you still did business with them. This is not something that you didn't know. One of the things that she said I found to be incredibly powerful because it's absolutely true. She said, you guys said there was no evidence, but I was the evidence. And that's something that we keep forgetting, that victim testimony is evidence. That someone walking forward and saying, this event happened to me is evidence. Nothing I think is going to be the same again after this. This event is probably sending shivers through corporate America right now. The accusations against Harvey Weinstein have had a tremendous impact on the company that bears his name. His board right now was under fire. There is quite a lot of evidence to suggest that not only did they know that he was a sexual predator, but they covered up for him. And that means that there's a lot of jail time on the table for a lot of the people that try to cover up things that they knew about him. And this is going to freak out, and this is freaking out a lot of corporate America. Absolutely. A lot of board members are sitting at tables tonight going, the fact that I knew that Jim molested somebody, is that going to come back and bite me? The fact that we paid hush money to an intern or to a human resources manager because one of our executives did something inappropriate, is that going to come back and bite me? And the answer is yes, it will. The answer is that you will start seeing a lot of people come forward in a lot of industries, and heads are going to start rolling everywhere because women are sick of it. And that's the beginning of something that I was alluding to earlier. This is the beginning of the end for this. This is the beginning of the end for the way women have been treated in the workforce for God knows how long. And it hasn't happened overnight. Again, the media is going to report it as if this is something that suddenly occurred. This has been a long time coming. But when things shift, they shift suddenly. And that sudden shift has happened. And you're witnessing that sudden shift taking place right now. You're witnessing the Rose McGowans of the world coming forward right now. And it's not the end of it. You will see a lot more. You will be reading a lot more of executives from all different companies. I guarantee you there's more going on in Amazon probably, in Facebook, in Google. All the big IT companies are going to get slammed because they have a toxic male culture that exists there. Absolutely, Hollywood is going to get slammed. This is the beginning of the end for the old casting couch system. And like I said, I still think I have a bet on the table that there's going to be 1 or 2 suicides as a result of it when people realize that the net is tightening around them. There are those, of course, that are still blaming the women. They're saying you should have come forward, you should have said this, you should have done that. But again, if you look at the Rowan Farrow article, if you go to the New Yorker and read the article, you will see they did come forward. You will see they did complain. You will see that many women within the Weinstein company went to HR and said, this is going on. And the board said, fuck it, we don't want to deal with it because Harvey's too important to the business model, because he's too important to the deals on the table right now. That's all going to change. Because as of right now, your exposure, your liability to a massive lawsuit is far more dangerous than losing that deal or that deal. You're also going to see a lot of reputations destroyed. You're already seeing it with Ben Affleck, with Matt Damon, the flack they're taking over why they didn't speak out, why they didn't sever ties with Weinstein years ago. At the end of the day, this is a great thing. This is a critically important moment in the history of corporate America and a critically important moment in the history of women in America, because that threshold, that red line has been reached. The we're not taking this bullshit any longer line has been reached, and it's been exceeded. And that's always a great thing, because that means things change. That means things will never be the same again. That means that women will finally start getting the respect they deserve in corporate America, because people will now realize not only is this inappropriate, which is something they should have realized years ago, but even the greedy and the corrupt within corporate America are finally going to realize this is something that we simply cannot deal with any longer. You think that they would do it simply out of the decency of their heart. You think they do it because it's the right thing to do. Unfortunately, that's just not how people are programmed in the corporate world, whether it's Hollywood or the tech sector or the financial sector. For them, it's about money. But thank God, with this kind of galvanizing public relations campaign, with this kind of galvanizing message, the equation changes. The math changes in terms of what is beneficial and what is profitable. Silence is no longer profitable. Suppression is no longer profitable. Sometimes you have to take your victories the way you can get them. And as much as we would like people to do the right thing simply because it's the right thing to do, in this case, you're going to start seeing greed forcing people to do the right thing. You're going to see the threat of litigation forcing people to do the right thing. And for now, that's a victory. That's good enough for now. But moving forward, we have got to address the issue and the culture that seems to bubble up and that seems to form around women in the corporate world, that seems to inspire men to do these kinds of things. And as a complete aside, if you wonder why it's important to have greater representation of women on boards, in decision-making processes, in the office, if you wonder why having, quote, quotas are critical, it's because of this. It's because if you have a male-dominated anything, you end up fostering this belief system. You end up fostering this behavioral system. This is why you need more women directors, more women writers, more women producers. This is why you need women in greater positions of power in studios and in corporations and in companies. This is why you need more women present in these scenarios. Why you need more women present in these buildings where these things are happening. Why you need more women present in these industries. Because the more women you have there, the less likely this is to happen. Not because they're going to be spying around and keeping an eye on everybody, but because you change the culture from the ground up. You actually change the dynamics of the relationships between people with power and people without power. The minute you infuse more women into an environment, that power dynamic automatically shifts. Hopefully that will happen sooner rather than later. But for now, like I said, you take your victories where you can get it. Thanks for checking out this episode of the Raccoon Club podcast. Catch you next time.